Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins. Welcome to This Week in Black and White. I'm here with Susan Patton, aka the Princeton Mom. How you doing today, Susan?
Wonderful voice. And you?
I'm doing fine, and I'm being a little disingenuous because we just recorded another segment about a different topic. But, I realize that because we get into it and we sometimes go back and forth, that all the energy kind of put into one topic kind of says, okay, we need to chop that video and then move to the next one. And so you had started jumping into something that I think is worth talking about. You were talking about the idea that racialized thinking or racial hatred can create an environment in which real violence occurs. Now, I was mentioning that in terms of what happened in Oklahoma, and you and I didn't agree in terms of what should have happened to those students. You felt that they shouldn't have been suspended. I felt like they should have because their words can have a real impact. Now, you compared that to the shooting of the two NYC police officers, and whether or not freedom of speech should have been restricted to avoid creating an environment within which officers were killed. Is that correct? Please.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is basically correct. My position has always been we never ever want to restrict anybody's freedom of speech. If you restrict freedom of speech, you're one step away from restricting freedom of thought, and that's completely unacceptable. And then you had mentioned that sometimes it is this kind of hate speech that creates an environment that leads to violence, to which my response was sort of like what happened in Ferguson, where what happened with Michael Brown created an environment that made that led to such hostility towards police officers that we have 2 dead policemen in New York as a result of that, directly as a result of that, and it's horrible.
Okay.
Horrible.
Okay, so you don't think there would be something wrong if someone had said, shoot all the NYC cops in the head, and then 2 cops got shot? You don't think that the person who gave the order or who made that statement deserves any form of accountability for what actually happened? You don't think that someone should say, no, you can't say that. If you say that, you're going to be punished for it. Now, remind you, the kids in Oklahoma were not arrested for saying that they want to hang black people from trees. They were just put out of school or suspended from school, right? But if you think about it, I personally think it would be a problem if you had a person say, "Oh yeah, all cops should be killed," and they went on TV saying this, "Kill cops," and then 2 cops get shot. Well, I would say that you are connected to that. You were complicit in what happened, right?
That's exactly what was said in Ferguson. I was reading the reports again this morning in preparation for our conversation today. The number of reports of black people shouting, "Kill all the white police MFs," and it was repeated, and an enormous population of black people were saying, "Kill all the white MF cops." Okay, do I think that they should be punished? No. No, saying it and doing it are 2 different things. And I would never restrict anybody's freedom of speech. I think it's bad. I think the fact that it led to an environment that left police officers dead, this is very troubling. But just shouting, "Kill all the cops," which is what was being shouted. Go back and read the report this morning. I read the reports this morning. I'll forward it to you. I could post it on your page. These were the shouts that were repeated. Do the people who are saying "kill all the cops," the MF cops, the white MF cops, should they be prosecuted? No. These are words. These are words. You could say whatever you want. You could think whatever you want. When you pick up a gun, or you pick up a knife, or you pick up a stick, that's different. But no, they should not be.
Well, but you have to remember, though, the punishment options for a protester are very different from the punishment options of a student. If a student attends the University of Oklahoma, the university can say, we don't support hateful language that promotes the idea of pursuing violence against a minority group, so we're going to suspend you. If you're not in school, what can happen to you then? They would arrest you? They're not going to. Remember, these kids in Oklahoma didn't get arrested; they got suspended from school. I think that's a very different thing. So, but if you're in school and you say to your fellow students, we should kill the cops.
You cannot be arrested.
Say it again.
You cannot be arrested. What should they have been arrested for? They didn't break a law.
Right.
There's nothing against the law about saying.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I agree that they shouldn't have been arrested, but what I'm saying is that if they were on campus and they said we should kill cops, and let's say a couple campus police were shot, the university, or let's say that they weren't shot, let's say that everyone just says, oh yeah, we should kill the cops. Well, the university would probably say something. They'd probably do something. I don't think they would just say, well, that's freedom of speech. You can talk about killing other people and sing about it, and it's okay. I don't think they would endorse that. I really don't.
Well, of course they're not going to endorse it, but
Well,
you can't do anything
or even
about it. You can't
allow
do anything about it. How do you stop it? You allow it. If you can't stop it, then you're forced to. What are you going to? You cannot tell people you may not use these words. You can't do that.
Well, freedom of speech.
Because the truth is, if that's what they think, that's what's in their hearts, then that's what's in their hearts. You're going to tell them you can't think it either. You can't say it. There's one step away from saying it. You can't even think it.
Well,
the difference is
having something
picks
in your
up
heart.
A weapon now.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish. Sorry.
No. I think that for people to say hateful things about the police, you could say kill all the cops. It's an ugly thing to say. It's a hateful thing to say. You can say it. It's not against the law to say it. I think it's against the law to yell fire in a crowded theater because then you are putting people literally at risk. But to say, I hate cops, I wish all the cops were dead, it's a really ugly thing to say. I would hope nobody ever says it. But if they do, come on. We do not restrict speech. We simply do not, regardless of how hateful or how stupid it is. So no, I would never advocate that anyone, even someone saying kill all the cops, you can't arrest them for what? These are words. If anybody picks up a rock or a gun or a knife, that's different. But words, no, you don't arrest people for words.
Well, remember though, freedom of speech, it does have limitations. I think that when freedom of speech does impact real actions, or when it's connected to real action, it does take a different implication, right? The fact that we've have such a history of racial violence means that singing about black people hanging from trees, it does actually mean something, especially when you're talking about wealthy white males who are descendants of people that did once hang black people from trees. It does mean something. So now mind you too, freedom of speech does not. It may apply in the sense that the government won't arrest you for what you say, but freedom of speech does not mean you get to keep a job. Freedom of speech does not mean that you get to stay in school. If you work for an employer who says, look, you can't come on our premises and represent our company and say, I want to kill cops. That's not what we stand for. You're going to be fired. That doesn't mean that they violated your freedom of speech. That means they just told you, we don't want to be associated with you, right? And that's what the University of Oklahoma did. They exercised their right to say, we don't want to be associated with a fraternity that has members that are singing about hanging black people from trees. Am I wrong?
Is it, yes, you are wrong. Is it different? Yes, you are wrong. Is it different to have people thinking that as opposed to saying it? Would you think that people, and you know that these SAE guys, who, by the way, I don't believe are the next leaders of the world. I don't believe that. These are idiots. Many members of SAE may go on to do big, huge things in the world, but all of them, no. And these idiots that would allow themselves to be filmed spewing this hate, no, these are not guys that are going to succeed in the real world. They are idiots who will be undone by their own stupidity. Of this, I am confident. You're saying that you don't get to keep a job? Well, interesting. I'm an HR babe, so I know about this kind of stuff. Most states are what we call at-will employment states, which means you keep a job for as long as I want to keep you employed. I could choose to terminate you whenever I want to, just because I want to, without any cause, without any reason. So that doesn't even enter into play here. But I think that we never want to legislate what people say because it's one step away from legislating how people think. Now, if we're going to talk about creating an environment, a hostile environment, I'm saying that what went on in Ferguson a few months ago created an environment that was so hostile towards police officers that 2 of New York's finest were shot dead. They were murdered, assassinated. What is your response to that? Who is responsible for that? I'm saying, you know who's responsible for the death of these 2 police officers? The guys who pulled the trigger. That's who's responsible. It's not the guys in Ferguson who are chanting, kill all the police. They didn't take up knives. They didn't take up guns. They didn't pull a trigger. It's when words translate into felonious action, that's when you prosecute. You do not prosecute people for what they think or for what they say. Go ahead.
Let me read some exceptions to freedom of speech that I found online. It's some legal dictionary, and I'll just read what's here. Speech. The exceptions are speech that involves incitement. That means getting people to do something that's going to hurt another person. False statements of fact, obscenity, child pornography, threats, and speech owned by others are all completely exempt from First Amendment protections. So my argument would be that that actually on the cop example you gave, if I go out here as Dr. Boyce Watkins, and let's say I have people that listen to me, and I say, kill the cops, kill the cops, kill the cops, and then somebody kills a cop, and a cop's family, they should come sue me for inciting violence against a police officer. I didn't pull the trigger, absolutely not. I can say I don't have anything to do with it, but think about it. I mean, for thousands of years, people have ordered people to be killed, and the responsibility didn't just lie on the person who pulled the trigger. It was also on the person who ordered the trigger to be pulled. So I have to disagree with you. I think that when what I say, my words do have some power, and I do have certain freedoms, but with freedom comes responsibility. And if you use those words too irresponsibly, then there might be some accountability, particularly if it translates into real action. I'll let you get the last word on this.
Well, you were talking about the lyrics that include hanging people from trees, and it made me think of a song called Strange Fruit. Do you know it?
Yes, I do.
Strange Fruit. Do you know it?
Billie Holiday. Yes.
I was just going to say, Billie Holiday, exactly. I was going to just suggest to all of your viewers, all of our viewers, if you don't know this song, go on YouTube and listen to it. It's one of the most heartbreaking, extraordinary pieces of music. Blood at the leaf, blood at the root. It's about lynching. That's exactly what it's about, and it's moving, incredibly moving. And all of our listeners should certainly go to YouTube and look at that. I just in closing, I think in anticipation of our conversations, I think all week long about racism, about where we are, how we got here, what we can do individually to make improvements in the way Black and white people interact with each other. Clearly, this is complex stuff, and I think honest conversation is helpful. I think it's helpful. I wish for it to be. I was telling my son yesterday that I feel, through our conversations, I feel I've become more sensitized to the plight of African American people. I mean, I've always been aware of it. I remember telling you months ago about the experience I had years and years ago when I was walking with my young son, and a homeless black man in front of a supermarket was clearly the cause of a white woman in front of me being repelled and pulling her purse close to her and racing away. And this black man, I'll never forget, he looked down at his hands and he said, "I wish I could scrape this shit off of me." And I remember and it's always stayed with me, how difficult it must be to be a black man in America, how difficult it must be that this is who you are and you can't conceal it. It's what you live with. These are prejudices that you deal with every day, probably every minute of every day. But I'm just saying, and I guess I want to thank you for the honesty and the opportunity to have these conversations with you. It has sensitized me even more to what you deal with and what my black friends deal with every day. I wish that your viewers understood that I don't pose a threat. I'm not a threatening person. I'm really not a racist person. I'm doing the best I can to understand a way of life that's clearly different than my own. So that's what I had to say. What do you have to say, Dr.
I think that's a great point you made, and I want people to understand that I don't care what they think. You and I were joking about how a lot of people that watch this, they want me to not like you, and I just have to tell them, no, I talk to you because I like you, and that's not going to change. And the other thing that I think is interesting, and this is a point I might add that you might want to just kind of swell around and think about is, when you say I'm not racist, I believe that you don't want to be racist, but I think it's okay for you to say, I might be a little racist, but I'm a good person and I'm trying to always be a better person, whatever that means for me, right? It doesn't mean you're going to agree with me. It doesn't mean we're going to see eye to eye, because my view is not a perfect view of the world. But I think that, us accepting the parts of ourselves that are impacted by an undeniably racist society, an undeniably sexist society, maybe we can make ourselves into more sensitive people, even if we don't get to the point where we see eye to eye with everyone else. For example, you and I will talk about what's going on with feminism sometimes. Neither one of us really like feminism. That's one area we always agree on. Feminism can be really ugly sometimes in its worst forms. But that doesn't mean that I can't still say, you know what, as a man, I probably do have some sexism inside of me that I have to still come to terms with. It does mean that maybe I can become more sensitive to the plight of women. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or that I have to see eye to eye with a feminist in order to be a better person, right? So I have feminist friends. I'm gonna fight with them tooth and nail probably for the rest of my life. But at the same time, I'm not fighting from a position of sort of saying that I know everything and I'm right and you're wrong and stuff like that. I don't think we have to go there really. So I believe you. Everything you said makes perfect sense to me, and I just say, hey, you know what? You spend a lot of time around black people. You're more enlightened than most people that I know. But you're still a white woman in America, and you're gonna have that a white Jewish woman. That's your perspective. That's who you are. That is your correct view of the world, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the best thing any of us can do is to say, well, okay, I know what my view of the world looks like. Let me see your view of the world without having to sort of feel like I can only connect to one view or the other. So I talk to you, and I love hearing what it's like to be a white Jewish woman. Like why do you guys see things this way, and why do you do that? It's educational, and that's what education is about. It's about learning to see the world from different points of view, not feeling like your point of view is the only one and it's the right one, and that's what screws up politics in America, in my opinion, in the first place.
Always. No, I completely agree with you. I still will not accept that I'm racist. I am not racist. And maybe the conversation, stop laughing at me, boys. Stop laughing at me. Maybe the conversation we need to have next week or some week is, what does it really mean to be racist? If we're saying racist means, I'm saying, when I say racist means I recognize that black people and white people are different. You're not going to disagree with me on that. They are different. That's not to say that I don't think that black people deserve the same rights, opportunities as white. Of course I do. So if I am and feminism the same way, to be sexist. What does it mean to be sexist? It means to acknowledge that men and women are not the same, because they're not the same. That doesn't mean one is intrinsically better and one is intrinsically worse. It doesn't mean that one is entitled to rights and opportunities that the other doesn't. It just means an acknowledgement that we're different. Men and women are different. Racism, I'm saying it means that I'm acknowledging that black people and white, stop laughing at me. You stop laughing at me.
I'm not laughing at you, I promise.
Black people and white people are different. Not that one's better than the other. Not that we shouldn't all be afforded equal rights and opportunities. I'm saying I acknowledge that black people and white people are different. That does not make me racist. I don't cop to it. I will not accept your saying that I am a little bit racist. I am just not. Simply not.
Well,
that's it.
I think that to ask, what does it mean to be racist? It might be like asking, what does it mean to be unhappy? Or what does it mean to be ugly, right? Those are such relative terms, right? It's just so subject to interpretation. What does it mean to be hungry? Right? Being hungry for one person means something very different for someone else. What does it mean to be poor? Right? Being poor in a third world country is very different from being poor in America, right? And so, that's what when I think about whether or not you're racist or anybody else or anybody, and there's even a whole debate about whether a black person can be racist. I personally think we can be, but that's a whole other issue. I have my interpretation of what racism looks like, but it may not be your interpretation, right? And I think that in order for any of these conversations to go forward, and I'm talking to the people that are watching right now and listening, in order for these conversations to go forward, you got to find a way to somehow disconnect from this idea that your truth is the only truth, or that you have the right answer. I think when you let that go, when you let go of that burden, then you realize, oh my God, there can be 25 right answers to the same question, depending on
That's
which
right.
way I look at it from, right? Like looking at a mountain or something, there are so many different angles you can see that mountain from. And to just sort of see it from one perspective and think that's the only point of view, that's gonna lead to a lot of chaos, right?
And it's short sighted and it's wrong, and you're closing yourself off to the opportunity of learning and growing as a person.
Absolutely. Well, I love it. I think that's a great way for us to shut it down. Thank you, Susan. I feel good. This was uplifting for me. How about you? Do you feel good?
Always. I always do. I always feel great after talking to you. I always go about my day thinking I was so right and he was so wrong.
By the way, I like that sweater. Is that red or is that orange? I can't tell.
It's orange. It's always
Orange.
orange. Come on.
Oh, okay.
It's
So it's
always
like it's Syracuse orange. You know, at first I thought it was red because it made me think about my beloved late grandmother Felicia, who died last year. I actually, just so you know, I just made a film about her on financial literacy and all the things my grandmother taught me about managing money and stuff like that. That's going to come out pretty soon, and so I was gonna mention my grandma. So, but I guess maybe that was just my excuse to bring her up. That's how I keep her alive. I talk about her as much as possible. So thanks for indulging me on that. Well, it was great talking to you, Susan, and everybody. I want you to check out Susan Patton, aka the Princeton Mom. She is the author of the book Mary Smart. She angers a lot of people because she tells her version of the truth, but she also excites and empowers a lot of people because she says the things that other people are afraid to say. And and if you want to know what brings us together, it's the fact that neither one of us give a damn about being politically correct. We care more about being correct. So thank you for checking us out. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.